In 1976, I was sentenced to death row, which for me wasn't a row at all, because I was the only woman in the country who had the sentence of death. So I suggested that they put me in the same cell as my husband. But let me start at the beginning. When people hear the phrase death row, they often think of the absolute worst of the worst. People so evil that they deserve the cruel fate that awaits them. But what happens when the person sitting on death row is innocent? According to the Innocence Project, 21 out of 367 wrongfully convicted people have spent time on death row. Behind each one of these numbers is a heartbreaking story about corruption in the so-called justice system. One of these stories is that of Sonny Jacobs, The Exonerated, by Jessica Blank and Eric Jensen. When I was 26, Jesse and I had been together for 3 years. Our daughter had just been born, and Jesse said he was going to go get himself a regular job. He just needed to go down to Florida one last time to do a little deal. Now, I didn't want to know about this deal because I knew it wasn't positive. It wasn't violent, but it wasn't positive. And finally, he calls and says that the deal fell through, and not only is he broke and has no way home, but he's staying with some girl. So of course, me, instead of saying, well, when you get it together, me and the kids will be here waiting for you, I said, I'll be right there to get you. So anyway, we get there, get Jesse, the car dies, and we're all stuck in Florida. And so Jesse says he'll call this guy he knows and ask if we can stay with him until we can scrap together the money to get home. And that's when I met Walter Rhodes. Rhodes had agreed to give me, the kids, and Jesse a ride, and we left, but traffic got terrible and it was getting late, so the decision was made to pull off-road until morning. And according to police reports, they came by to do a routine check on the rest area. They look in the window and see a gun in between Rhodes' feet. They order him out of the car and ask for ID. And the police radio comes back with the information that Rhodes is on parole. The possession of a gun is a parole violation. That changed everything. The cop pulled out his gun and said, okay, the next one to move is dead. It all happened so fast, you know. I just ducked down to cover the kids and psh, 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 psh. And then it was silent. I mean, dead silent. And then suddenly Rhodes runs in front of the car, gun in hand, and says, come on, I'm gonna take a police car. I mean, Rhodes had just killed 2 people, had a gun, and was telling us to get in the car. And you know, people ask, why didn't you just refuse to go? And I think, you've never been at the other end of a gun, have you? So we get in the car. We couldn't speak. We were practically kidnapped at that point. We didn't dare. And then suddenly traffic gets terrible and you can hear the helicopters above, and I know there must be a roadblock. Shh. Let me ask you this point blank, Sonny. Who shot the highway patrolman and the other officer? I don't know. Did you shoot the highway patrolman? No. Do you know if people were shot? I'm sorry. People were shot, the patrolman was shot, and this is what this is all about. I didn't see. Well then how do you know that 2 people are dead? You said that's what we're here for. I didn't see. Alright, we advised you that people were dead because we had to read you your rights. And it's imperative that you relay the facts of this to the best of your ability. Something caused you to be very disturbed. What was that something? And what I didn't know is that while I was being questioned and Jesse was being questioned, was that Rhodes, from his hospital bed, was negotiating a deal. He'd been in prison before. He knew how the system worked, and so he was claiming that he didn't do it. We did. My husband was tried first, and he had had a past record, but from when he was 17 years old. We, of course, had no good attorneys, no dream team, no expert witnesses. So he was convicted and sentenced to death. My trial came later, and I thought, surely that won't happen to me. And so I thought, I'd go in, they'd figure out I didn't kill anyone, and they'd let it go. But that's not how it works. There was prosecutorial misconduct, there was hiding of evidence that would have proven that I didn't do it. The jury wasn't even allowed to know that Rhodes had accepted a plea deal of 3 life sentences in exchange for his testimony. Now, I don't think 3 life sentences is much of a bargain. Nobody I know would think that's a bargain. They tell you exactly how they're going to do it. They're going to shoot 255 volts of electricity through your body until you're dead. And then they ask you if you have anything to say to that. It's really kind of dumbfounding. And so when the judge read the sentence, I just asked, "Are you finished?" I didn't have anything to say. What do you say? How could you possibly say anything to that? Instead of sending me to be Jesse's cellmate, they cleared out an entire disciplinary unit at the women's prison. It's a very old prison. It's like a dungeon type place. It was 6 steps from the door to the toilet bowl. They take your clothes, they give you a number, so they're basically taking who you are from you. You're no longer a name, you're a number. You're locked inside this tomb. It's like you're thrown into the bottom of a well. In 1979, Rhodes wrote the following letter to the judge. "I, Walter Norman Rhodes, hereby state that I am under no duress nor coercion to write this. These statements are being made freely and willingly to purge myself before my Creator. On February 20th, 1976, I did in fact shoot to death 2 law enforcement officers with a 9mm pistol. I hereby state emphatically and unequivocally that my previous testimony against Jesse Taffero and Sonia Jacobs were false, in part of statements I was instructed to give by the Assistant State Attorney who did coerce me into lying. The foregoing statements are true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Walter Norman Rhodes, November 9th, 1979. Keep in mind that I wasn't released until 1992, so I'll just give you a moment to reflect. From 1976 to 1992, just remove that entire chunk of your life. That's what happened. And then, one day, a judge came to me and told me I was getting out. I thought he was trying to trick me. And I was just so joyous. I mean, I know a lot of people are angry, and I was angry some, but I didn't want to waste my time being mad. I mean, I'm not glad for what happened to me while I was in there. My parents died. My children grew up without a family, and my husband, Jesse, was executed very, very brutally. Jesse's execution was known worldwide. The chair malfunctioned, made a mess of it, and they had to pull the switch 3 times. And he didn't die. It took 13 and a half minutes for Jesse to die. 3 volts of electricity that lasted 55 seconds each, almost a minute each, until finally flames shot out of his head and smoke came out of his ears. And the people who came to witness the execution on behalf of the press are still writing about it 10 years afterwards. Why did we do that? I want to be a living memorial. When I die, I want them to plant tomatoes on me so that I can still be part of things. While I'm still here, I'm planting seeds everywhere I go, so that one day people can say, I once heard this woman, and she didn't get crushed, and she didn't let them stop her. And if that little woman can do it, then I can do it. And that's my revenge. That's my legacy and my memorial.